Hello, guys. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Room to Infinity series live session Workplace Mental Health Supporting Employers and Employees During COVID 19. My name is Elizabeth. I'm from Enterprise Asia. Thank you for joining us here in another of our Room to Infinity session. Before we begin, to those who's already logged on, we have a poll question for you. The question is, are you an employer, employee, or student? As you're watching this from the FB Live session, please kindly key in your answers in the comment section so we can know you a little bit better. So let's take a moment to do that. Again, the question is, are you an employer, employee, or student? Okay, Mariam, thank you for joining us. Okay, we have quite a few employees. At this moment, we can see we have mostly employees that's logged on. All right. We'll very much like to ask you to share the webinar to your friends, and feel free to even host a watch party. This is a session I'm sure will benefit most people regardless of age or profession. In the meantime, do continue to put in your answers as Dr. Aisya will still be able to see your live comments, so she will have a good sense of who you are. So thanks for joining us this afternoon here in our Room to Infinity series. Room to Infinity is brought to you by Enterprise Asia Center for Entrepreneurship, which is a joint collaboration between Enterprise Asia and Help University. Enterprise Asia is a leading non-governmental organization in pursuit of creating an Asia that is rich in entrepreneurship as an engine towards sustainable and progressive economic and social development. And the Enterprise Asia Center for Entrepreneurship is created to accelerate the growth of entrepreneurs in Malaysia and also across Asia through evidence-based industry best practices, curation of transferable framework for shared values practices, and aggregation of innovation and innovative practices. And Room to Infinity series is actually a series of entrepreneur sharing session, which is an initiative by the center to educate business and concurrently employer, empowering youth on thought-provoking topics, promoting entrepreneurship in the process. And our partner Help University, a leading institution of higher learning in Malaysia, and is the first private university in Southeast Asia to achieve 5 stars in 8 categories in the 2020 QS Stars University ratings. Today we are very honored to have a very special speaker with us. She is a chartered clinical psychologist who have just returned to Malaysia after spending 3 years working with the United Kingdom's National Health Service, Dr. Aisya Musa. Allow me to introduce to you about Dr. Aisya. Dr. Aisya receives her undergraduate, master's, and doctoral qualification in clinical psychology in the UK. She works in various evidence-based practices such as cognitive behavioral therapy, systemic therapy, acceptance, commitment therapy, and others, and has experience working with individuals who have depression, anxiety, emotional, and trauma-related difficulties, and psychosis as well. She is passionate in helping individuals who struggle with their mental health and emotional difficulties, and she always believes that everyone deserves a chance for their voice to be heard and to find a way to cope. We are delighted to have Dr. Aisya with us today. So today's live talk, Dr. Aisya will be sharing with us about how to take care of our mental health and well being as the pandemic has changed and disrupted our lives. We are living in a new normal today, although more people are beginning to return to work while abiding to the social distancing rules. There are still lots of uncertainties about the future: fear of unemployment, financial security, and general worries about health. This will further add to the strain and anxieties we felt. So, in this webinar, Dr. Aisha will be providing strategies to employees and employers on how to improve workplace mental health while balancing productivity. So, for those that has just logged on and joined us, welcome. And before we begin, I'd like to address this to the audience that we'll be running a live Q&A at the end of Dr. Aisha's presentation. So, as you're watching from the FB live streaming, if you have any question, just pop them in the comment section. And right now, without further ado, let's hear from Dr. Aisha. Dr. Aisha?
All right, brilliant. Thank you, Elizabeth, for that introduction. And welcome, everyone. I hope everyone's doing all right and your day's been going well. So, as Elizabeth has mentioned, today I'll be talking about workplace mental health, supporting employers and employees during COVID-19. Okay, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about what's happening right now, but essentially, as we know, that the virus has now has now turned into a pandemic, and has led to many changes in our lives. I think for the first time ever in our lifetime that we were asked to stay away from other people, and our work has now gone to our homes now. So there's a lot of disruptions in our routine, changes in the workplace, and it's caused us to be isolated, not just from our family and friends, but also our co-workers. And there's a lot of uncertainties about the future, not just the economy, but our own uncertainties as well when it comes to the future of our jobs and the future of our loved ones as well. So at the end of the day, I just wanted to say that given the stresses that we're going through, whether you're feeling anxiety, grief, sadness, all of these emotions that you feel are entirely normal and valid. But having said that, it is imperative and it's important for us to take care of our mental health now. Okay, so here are some of the principles that I'd say we all need to hold on to. The first is that you are not working from home or working per usual. You are at home or in an office during a crisis, trying your very best to do work. I think that's very important because I think we put a lot of expectations on ourselves to work per usual during this pandemic, but actually there are lots of stresses that we're going through and a lot of changes that we're going through, and understandably our productivity might go down at that time. So that leads me to the second point: be kind to yourself and others. Try not to judge yourself based on how others are coping. And I know that the internet is filled with productivity, telling us to be productive, but at the end of the day, we all cope in different ways. And as well, try not to judge others for how they're coping during this time. And the last is you should not compensate for lost productivity by working longer hours. And this is especially important because during times of stress, it's expected that productivity will go slightly down. But because we either pressures from employers or our own pressures for us to keep working as much as we can, we might be working longer hours and longer hours. And when we do that, we feel more burnt out and tired, and that just makes us be even more unproductive. So it's a never-ending cycle. So you might feel like you're doing a lot more work if you're doing longer hours, but actually if you can manage to designate working time and other times for relaxations, then that could really help improve that productivity. Okay, so now I go on to strategies to improve workplace mental health. The first is to keep a regular schedule or to make a new one. As I said before, our schedules has been interrupted because of the COVID-19 virus, but also because of the MCO. So if I've included an example for those who are still working from home that you could utilize and make your own schedule. So put in the time that you wake up each day. Is it 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock? The time for meals, when you start working. I would say try to have breaks every 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be long. It can just be a minute of stretching, just to de-stress a little. And then, of course, have an end time to your work day. And after that, try to schedule in self-care time or relaxation time with your loved ones, or with yourself at the end of the day. Okay, here are some things that to keep in mind of when you are building your own schedule. If you happen to be still working from home and you have a young child with your children, you might want to use nap time to your advantage. So, for example, if they have a scheduled nap time, you can schedule in your time then. Understandably, children wants our attention. So if you have a partner that could help out, both of you can schedule your work together, in that your partner will take time to take care of your child, and then you can work during that time, and vice versa. It's important to stick to the schedule you have set out. So, you know, in that sense, try to make a schedule that is realistic, that you can follow. But having said that, try not to feel guilty if you're not able to stick to it to a T, because essentially it's not there, for you to feel stressed. It's there to help you to know what you need to do for that day. Try to have a set end time to work for the day, and try not to schedule work in right before you sleep. And I'm guilty of that too. Sometimes we might get a notification on our phones from our employers or employees, and you feel tempted to look at our work schedule. And understandably, there are times that we can't avoid it. But if it's something that becomes a routine, we might feel even more stressed and tired. And suddenly, our bed are no more a place of rest. It's now a place of stress and work, in that time period. Okay, now this one is also related to building a schedule, which is on knowing your boundaries. So set boundaries on work time and home time, family time. Try to get work done during the office, and relaxation and family time at home. If you are still working from home, it might be good to have space boundaries. So, what does that mean? So, if you say, for example, stay in a very small apartment, you might want to say have your work desk as your place of work, and your bed is your relaxation, self-care, or rest place. And it's important to have that line between where is work and where isn't, because then your home doesn't just become a place of stress in its entirety. And of course, inform your family of your work schedule as well. Especially if you're living with your family, it might be good for them to understand why you need to work in certain time periods, and if they have any expectations for you. Okay. Now, the next bit is about practicing self-care. At the end of the day, a lot of people ask me what sort of self-care is important to have. And I think it's different for everyone. And, I might suggest things like exercising, it might be helpful. But if you have a very stressful work schedule, or if you're, say, living in a very small space, it might not be realistic for you to do rigorous exercises in your home. So ask yourself, what self-care activities can you do now? Set realistic goals for yourself. Try not to give ambiguous goals like tomorrow I will exercise. Instead, what might be helpful is knowing what time you're going to do it, how long you're going to do it for, what the exercise is, and where you're going to do it. So I've set an example here. Today, after work at 7 p.m., I will spend 10 minutes doing yoga exercises in my room. Try to know the difference between long-term versus short-term benefits. So if before this MCO, or even during it, you've coped with your stress through smoking, for example, and you realize that you've been smoking a lot more right now, ask yourself, is this something that's going to benefit me in the long run, or are there other activities that I can do that might benefit me during this difficult time? Okay, so these are the different self-care activities that you can try out. I'm not going to go through each and every one of them. You can, I realize that everyone wouldn't be having the slides, but there are resources online. I've also got resources myself. So if you want to email me after this presentation, I can give you resources that you can look at. But yeah, just any activities that have brought you joy and soothed you in the past could work as well. Okay, so deep breathing and mindfulness is an extension of self care. Mindfulness is essentially any activities that makes us appreciate the moment and and allow our mind to not wander too much into overthinking. I guess an example as to why mindfulness activities might be helpful is that, say for example, if you had a very stressful day at work and then you come home and you're having dinner with your family, you might not be able to enjoy that time with your family because your mind is thinking about all the things that's happening in the office. So I've included two exercises that might be really simple and easy and short to do as well, and let's do it together if that's okay. So wherever you are, place your feet on the ground, your hands on your thighs, lean back against your chair if you're sitting. Now breathe in slowly through your nose, counting to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause and then slowly exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Feel your stomach expand as you breathe. So breathe in, pause, and then breathe out. And slowly feel your stomach deflate like a balloon. If you feel like your shoulders are moving up and down a lot, it might be that you're breathing quite shallowly. So again, it's your stomach that's doing the work here. So again, breathe in slowly through your nose. Don't try to rush it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause. And then slowly exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you get distracted during the exercise, that's okay because that's how our minds work. Just bring your attention back to your breathing. Again, we've come to the end of the exercise. So you can see that it's a very simple and easy exercise to do that you could do during your break times. And studies have shown that even 5 minutes of breathing exercises a day can really help us to manage any anxieties that we have. So it's really useful. Another one, this form of mindfulness activity called self-soothing with our 5 senses is also a really good one to try out. So what are our 5 senses? It is vision, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. And find activities that can self-soothe us based on those 5 senses. So for myself, so an activity that I find soothing with my eyes is looking at the colors of the sky and watching the clouds. So I'm gonna do this activity again with you. If you have a window nearby you, that's great. Just focus your attention onto the window. If not, if you're in a room that doesn't have a window, just focus on a direction and start to imagine yourself looking out the window. Start to first notice the colors in the sky. Is it blue in color? Are there different shades of color? Do you happen to notice any yellow or orange? Try to watch the clouds. As clouds usually have different shapes, allow yourself to notice each and every one of those shapes and start to notice the colors within them as well. Is it gray? Is it white? Sometimes you might find that clouds move and change their shapes. And if that's the case, start to notice how it might be slowly changing its shape. You might find that your mind is wandering elsewhere, and that's okay. Just slowly allow your mind to come back to what you're doing now. Okay. We come to the end of the exercise. So yeah, this is again very quick that you can do in those 2 minutes of rest that you have in between work. I've also included other examples here with hearing, listening to your favorite music might be useful. Smelling the coffee or tea, or like flowers in your office or your home. Taste your favorite food. Touch, maybe hugging people that you love in your home, or wearing a comfortable clothes or blanket and feeling the textures might be really useful. Okay. The next bit is about staying connected. Now we know that from research on quarantine that people have reported feeling really significant loneliness, and we know that with prolonged loneliness, it can really affect our health, not just our mental health, but also our physical health as well. There's been links with coronary heart diseases, for example, and stroke. So it's important to have meaningful conversations with family and friends. Try to schedule at least 15 minutes a day, just either video calling or texting, and try to give them full attention during that time. Of course, try out creative ways as well. I've heard of people having Google Hangout sessions where they have coffee sessions with their colleagues or Zumba sessions. It might be hard for us Muslims who are going to Ramadan right now, but it might still be something that's useful in the future, or just to see how your coworkers are doing during this time. Okay, this next bit is I would say one of the more important ones to have a think about. It's about knowing what you can and cannot control. During times of crisis, it's been known that we might be feeling like we are out of control of anything. Nothing is within our control, and everything just feels like it's spiraling, and that causes our anxiety to increase even more. So it's important for us to know what we can control to manage that stress. So get a pen and paper and just start to write down the things that you can't control and to make counter arguments based on that. So I've got an example here. Some of the things that you cannot control are the future economy, your work environment, whether or not other people practice social distancing. However, on the flip side of that is that what you can control is knowing your legal rights and any workplace support available, supporting yourself and your colleagues during this difficult time, and your own personal hygiene and social distancing. By doing this, by concentrating on what we can control, we are not only making an impact on ourselves, but also to other people, our colleagues and our loved ones. And it really stops our mind from spiraling some more. If our mind's saying everything's just scary and out of control, we can say, yes, it is scary. Things are feeling out of control. But here are the things I can do now, and that is enough. The last bit I want to talk about is about working towards your values. What is important to you? What makes work meaningful to you? Values are different from goals, in that values is more about the direction that you want to move towards, whereas goals is something that you want to achieve and there's an end point to it. So for example, if you're quite achievement focused at work, you might value work that gives you that sense of feeling achieved or growth, for example. Or if you value relationships and helping others, it might be that you want to incorporate time with your co-workers and enjoying that time with them. Think about how you can incorporate that at the end of the day. And I just want to say that working towards your values doesn't necessarily mean that the difficult emotions leave us. And it might be that there are days that we might wake up in our beds feeling tired about going to work. But if we can remind ourselves of our values and work towards those values at work, it might not make things easier, but it would give us purpose and meaning when we get up from that bed. Okay, so the next bit is about how employers can help. So employers also have principles to hold on to. The first is having empathy for yourself and your employees. try your hardest not to judge your employees. Like for example, if you have an employee who has young children who is very productive during this time versus another employee who has children who may not be as productive, try not to blame them or judge them based on that. Have flexible productivity expectation and have clear direction and prioritization. Again, productivity may be going down at the moment, and it's expected that it will go down during a crisis. So what you really want to do is to know what your priorities are, what work needs to be done now, as opposed to you, for example, asking everyone to work as per usual, because again, nothing might be able to be completed in that way of thinking as well. Okay. The first bit is about having consistent and transparent communication. It is understandable that your employees might be feeling stressed and yourself as well might be feeling quite anxious. So have clear and regular communication with the team about the status and inner workings of the company. Communicate any workplace support availability, and allow the space for discussions between employees and between yourself and employees. And what might help with that is to actually have a regular meetings, either remote or not, to just really discuss these things and open dialogue with your employees. Seek clarity over compliance. Now, I understand again that it is a very stressful time, and you might feel like you would want complete compliance over your employees. However, it might be worth just to seek to understand any loss of productivity or difficulties that your employees has. So be more solution focused rather than problem focused. This is not to say that you can't highlight when a problem does occur, but rather than blaming your employee, what might be helpful is to ask, how can I help you to solve this? Also, using a strength-based communication might boost motivation. So, for example, reminding the employee of some of their good traits or their values, or reminding them of times that they've done really good jobs, and that really helps them to remind themselves of who they are as employees, and to boost that motivation again. Of course, providing a safe space is important, following SOPs, providing hand sanitizers, temperature checks, and ensuring that the workplace is clean and spaced between employees. There are like different ways to go about this as well. You could, for example, do a rotation where you can have team A that comes in at specific days, and then you can have team B comes in specific days as well. Ask yourself what meetings need to be done remotely and face to face. It might be that you're able to do most of it remotely, and maybe the essential ones could be face to face. And that could really give that surety to your employees to come to work as well. Okay, and the last bit is about being a role model for healthy behaviors. Be the champion of mental health, talk about it, communicate with it, and locate mental health resources for your employees, be it any psychological supports they could get, or maybe even hosting a webinar for their mental health. And of course, at the end of the day, take care of your own mental health at the end of the day, because you are the leader, and if you feel like you're getting quite burnt out and tired, it's okay to take breaks, and if not, things might trickle down the company, and it might get worse. So again, try to take care of your mental health. Okay, so I've come to the end of my talk. I've got resources again. Like I'm so sorry that everyone won't be able to get the slides, but if you email me, I can send you the resources and the slides as well if you need. So this is a link for any self-care activities that you can try out. This particular website, freemindfulness.org, has audios that you can download for free, that you can try out. So they have different breathing exercises there, and also mobile app, Stop, Breathe, and Think, which is a free mindfulness app. You can also type in mindfulness in your app stores, and I'm sure you can find other applications there that you could download. I've also included links on knowing your rights. Perceso is an important one to take note of. So say, for example, if you're worried about losing your job or have known anyone who've lost their job, Precaso is a government body that is responsible for ensuring that social protection. So you can ask them, ask the government, like what sort of compensation you can get from having lost your job. Here are resources on workplace mental health in general and where to get help. Mercy Malaysia is a good one to go to. And again, there's no shame in asking for help in these difficult times. So if you do find yourself struggling significantly in mental health, again, call Mercy Malaysia. There's a helpline there. Reach In Online has a good database of all the different psychological help that you can go and seek out if you feel like it. Right, so I'm going to take questions now. But if you have any further questions or if you want the resources, here's my email, aisya@resolve.my, and I should be able to get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aisya.
Mhm.
All right, without further ado, we are now going to address some questions from the audience. As a reminder to everyone, you can still submit your questions into the Facebook live comments. Okay. We have one here from Ms. Yogesh. How can we measure the mental health of our employees?
I think there are different screening measures that you could use. But I think what's more important really is to ask your employees how they're feeling. So asking how they're feeling, how they're coping, how has their work been affected by this. Of course, there are measures online such as the DASS, so that measures depression, anxiety, stress. But again, I think the more important thing to do is just to ask your employees how they can cope with their how they are coping with their mental health and how you can help with for them to cope with those mental health as well.
Okay, I have a very interesting question here. All right, from TJ. My company is implementing salary cut measures and voluntary leave. I am feeling very anxious and strong resentment on the situation. So how can I cope with this kind of feelings? Should I tell my employer about it?
Yeah, and first of all, I just wanted to say I'm really sorry that you're going through that. It must be a really, really difficult time. I would say, I mean, if you feel safe to talk to your employers, then yes, absolutely have a conversation with your employer and talk about the anxiety you feel. But not only that, ask them whether in detail about these measures that you're going through and the voluntary leaves as well, whether it's affecting everyone or whether it's affecting certain parts of the team. And of course, for yourself, aside from that, again, to practice self-care, get support from your fellow employees as well. And again, it's okay to feel that resentment. It's okay to feel anxious, and just to talk about it and ensure that you have that support system during a difficult time.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. And all right, another question from Veronica. She was being called to go back to the office, but she felt it's really unsafe to do so with the daily rising cases of COVID-19. What should she do? I mean, like, what should I do? What should we all do?
Yeah. Very good question, Veronica. I think at the end of the day, just have a discussion with your employer and your team on what the SOPs are in your offices, whether they've done the safety measures needed, so that could help you as well to feel a bit safer in the situation. Other things, again, like if it's required for you to go to the office, try to practice that mindfulness exercises again to go through and feel less anxious of the situation. And also, again, reminding yourself what you can control for now, things like your own personal hygiene and social distancing, and believing that that is enough to protect you.
Right. Okay. Let's address another question from Mariam. As employers, we want to be compassionate and understanding because we want we all want to retain all employees. Companies lose money daily, but we don't want to add stress to the employees. But how do we encourage productivity without inducing stress?
Yeah. I think it goes back to knowing the values of your employees and working together on focused ideas. So, for example, if you feel like your employees are slowly feeling less productive, understandably, right now, I think to have a meeting and to ask them what are some of the difficulties that they have. Could it be that being at home is things have just become really tiring doing work at home, and if that's the case, how can you as an employer help? Or if it's because of being home with family and having difficulties to pay attention at work, how are you and your employee can work together to accommodate that? um, but yeah, I think also reminding them of their values and reminding them of the good job that they've done in the past, as well as, yeah, just and being the listening ear is a very powerful thing. And if employees feel that you are um, you know uh, their supporter in all of this, then they would slowly feel more able to do their jobs and feel more productive doing their job, because they know that you as an employer care about them.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Aisha. All right. There's a question from Cornelius. How can I handle the emotions of other family members who are being affected by the crisis? How do you help them?
Hmm. Well, basically, I think all of the suggestions that I've said, so things like setting up routines for everyone, writing down together with them how the things that they can and can't control. But at the end of the day, just giving them the empathy and telling them that what they feel is completely valid, and reminding them that actually, yes, this pandemic is something that is new and scary, but you know the emotions that you feel, be it anxiety, grief, sadness, all of these emotions you have gone through in your life before, and as such, you have been able to cope with these emotions in the past, so have confidence that you will get through this. So just getting them to acknowledge that is also important.
Okay, I saw one here which is quite interesting. What's the difference between psychologists, psychiatrists, and therapists? If I have mental health issues, who should I seek advice?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think it really, really depends. So, psychiatrists are basically medical specialists. So, they are doctors first, and they went on to specialize in psychiatry. So, they are the ones who say maybe perhaps if you're really struggling, then and you can go to for, say, diagnosis or medications. Psychologists, counselors, therapists, they're all basically I guess, experts in mental health. So if you need, say, for example, psychological support, it might be that they are the ones that you can go to for psychological therapies, for example. So it really depends. I mean, and this is not to say that psychiatrists don't do psychological therapies themselves. I've seen a number of them. But yeah, if it really depends on what your priorities are. But yeah, very good question. Thank you for that. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I actually have a question. What do you do when a loved one has passed in the midst of this pandemic? Like, I do have a case. I have a friend whose father had passed away, and actually she has difficulty to go back to her hometown, so
Mm,
to be with him even for his last moments. So she's going through a lot of sadness right now. So
mm,
as like as a friend or even family members, how do we help them to cope in this kind of situation?
yeah. I think it is really, really difficult. And I think understandably the person will be going through grief. And grief, there's like different stages of it. There's denial, there's anger, there's bargaining, there's you know, depression, and then suddenly there's like, and then they'll go through the cycle, and then acceptance will be the last bit. So allow them that space to go through each and every one of those stages of grief at the end of the day. But being there for them, supporting them, and being the listening ear again. I think people really don't see the value of that, but actually one of the most powerful thing that you can do with someone is just to listen in and to just empathize with them. So allow them to have that grief, because it is a difficult thing to happen, and it just confirms, doesn't it, that this virus is a scary thing. So yeah, just listening to them and getting them to go through the stages of grief themselves.
All right. Um, I think it is particularly difficult because during this, I mean, like lockdown, so it's very difficult for us to be with them, like physically, like to give them a pat or a hug. So, so like what can we like go an extra mile to actually to help them go through this grief or comfort them?
Yeah, that's a very good point, Elizabeth. I think so. People think that social distancing means that we'll be going to be disconnected with other people, but actually, it doesn't mean that we'll be socially disconnecting from others. So, again, one of the most powerful things that people can do is to listen and to pay attention. So, giving a call, whether it's video calling or even texting, and asking questions that could be meaningful, like how are you coping right now? What are you feeling? And also telling them how you're feeling as well, whether it's anxiety or sadness, and so both of you can bond with each other and feel that empathy for one another. There's also other creative ways that you can go about it, to have that comfort and support from others. So I think one of the things that people are doing now is doing online games to each other, like Scrabbles, or like guess the drawing, for example. And I think these are really good and interesting ways to connect with one another. So not just your colleagues, but your family members and your friends getting together and doing those games could be very, very useful. And you can laugh and joke as you usually would outside.
Mm. But I actually thought of something. How about from the employers? Like for example, like one of the employees, their loved ones have passed away, but what can the employers do?
That's a good point. I think again, like it goes back to listening to the employees and asking them how they can help. So having that resources in hand, having the tools and connections and contacts of people that might be helpful for them to get into contact with, and again allowing them to have that grief as well. If their productivity goes down, have that understanding as well. And again, allocating work that needs prioritizing for now, as opposed to allowing them to just go on as per usual.
I see. Thank you so much, Dr. Aisha. I would just like to address the audience. Do we still have any more questions? Okay, I think there are at this moment there are no more questions from the audience. So I think we have come to the end of the today's live webinar. So to the audience, if you have further questions or you are interested in the slides, you can actually contact Dr. Aisha@resolve.my. All right. So the email is shown on the screen. Okay, as for this video, it will still be available on the Enterprise Asia Facebook page. And for those who are interested in a free e-copy of our Enterprise Asia 2019, the White Book, do kindly visit our website at www.enterpriseasia.org.
Oh, sorry, Elizabeth. I think there's one more question. I'm really sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay, the question from Prishal. The pandemic has affected my business badly, and I'm having sleepless nights. Emotionally, I'm unable to handle my staff, and I'm feeling insecure that they are not working productively. I am lost. What should I do?
Okay. I think having an honest conversation with your employees about what's going on is paramount to getting it out there. Again, like I said, taking care of your mental health is utmost importance. So having that important dialogue with employees might be helpful, and also that this is something that might be out of your control. So ask yourself, how can you manage your stress and how can you make yourself feel better for now? So contacting your loved ones, um, having a good cry, that's something that could be useful as well. And just ensuring that you practice the self-care that used to help you before the MCO and before the COVID-19 situation might be helpful.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. All right. There's one more question from Maria. Do you have a mental health awareness questionnaire which will determine the mental health of a person?
Mm. I find it really interesting that everyone's there was another similar question to this. Uh, Again, like I think rather than a questionnaire to just ask an employee how they are feeling, um, I understand the need for a questionnaire. So there are a few questionnaires that employers can use, things like the DAS again, or like there's other things like PHQ-9 and GAT-7. So there's again, these are a few questions that you can Google, but I would say rather than asking giving a questionnaire, to just ask them how they're feeling, and to come up with solutions to cope rather than an actual questionnaire, I would say.
All right. Okay. So to the audience, if you have any questions, you can still continue to post here. But in the meantime, I'd like to continue to address the audience for those who are interested in the free e-copy of our Enterprise Asia 2019, the White Book. So please visit our website at www.enterpriseasia.org/area/. Go to the publication tab and then key in the code AREA 2019 to receive your free e-copy version of our 2019 The White Book. So, and also at the same time, do follow us on Enterprise Asia Facebook page to receive future updates on our upcoming events. If there are no more questions from the audience, I think this is the end of the webinar. Thank you, Dr. Aisya, for the
Thank you.
really helpful presentation. And before we end the session, do you have anything else that you would like to add on or to address the audience?
Um, I think, like I said, like I think it's a really, really difficult time. So try not to be so hard on yourselves. If you need a good cry, go ahead and cry. If you need to talk to someone, talk to someone. Try not to feel guilty for feeling the way you do. Is paramount, and I think you're all coping as well as you can during this difficult time.
Thank you, Dr. Aisya. So on behalf of Enterprise Asia and Help University, thank you everyone for attending today's Room to Infinity live talk on workplace mental health, supporting employers and employees during COVID-19. We hope to see you again next time in another Room to Infinity session. So stay healthy and stay safe, everyone. Have a great week ahead. Bye.
Bye.